Coming to you live from the Midwest and the West Coast. Welcome to Patriots 3, Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness. Here's your host, Tim, and our special guest, Josh Coleman from V is for Vaccine. How you doing this evening, Josh?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing all right. It's been quite a while since I've seen you. About good 4 years? A little over 4 years?
Yes.
Wow. Lots gone on since then, and we'll be letting our audience know quite a bit of what's all been going on. Let's see, tonight we're definitely going to be talking about scrolling up to my notes here. I'm not prepared. Stepping up to fight bills, especially for children's rights. What is V is for Vaccine? The VaXXed Tour. We're definitely going to be talking to Josh about the VaXXed Tour. I'm really excited about this evening. Again, Josh is an amazing person. Just to be around him, just really awesome, good energy, good guy all the way around, and a very well-informed person when it comes to fighting these terrible, outrageous bills that are going on throughout the United States. So it's not just California. This is going on everywhere. But I'm going to give a quick shout out to my friend, Pastor Jerry Cook. If I bring up the right screen, let me try that trick again. Pastor Jerry Cook with Politics in the Pulpit, live on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific on KHTS in Santa Clarita, California, and also on Rumble. So I'll go ahead and post the links. Pastor Jerry, he brings up topics not just about California, but all around the nation as well. So definitely join in on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. live on KHTS, and catch the replay commercial free on Rumble. All right, Josh, let's get to it.
Yeah.
So one of our favorite friends here. I mean, well, I'll just put it this way. Dr. Richard Pan.
There he is.
Yeah.
The
So I'm going to be showing some, I like to call them fun videos, but this is kind of how I got to meet Josh here, as I was actually, 2 or 3 days after getting terribly sunburned on my feet. I finally made it to a beach after 14 plus years. Both my feet were second-degree burns, squeezed into these shoes. I mean, the poor shoes were just, you could tell I'm not a chunky guy. And my feet were just like pouring out of these shoes. Wow. And I'm in just blistering pain, all pun intended. And I'm going up to Sacramento to fight up against some egregious health bill that Richard Pan wrote. And so that's how I met. I got to stop doing that. All right. That's how I met Josh here.
Nice. And
the other side of me is Max Bonilla. Yeah. Max Bonilla is another freedom fighter there in California.
Yeah. Big hustler.
Wonderful. So the reason I'm, sharing this broadcast across the nation is because everyone needs to know in their own state on how to, take care of these things. So definitely, look some things up in your state legislation. And one of the recent bills that you were fighting up against, Josh, was this AB 2651.
Right.
Informed Parents Healthy Schools Act. Now, if anyone's familiar with California's Proposition 47 back in 2014, the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, that was nothing to do with safety for neighborhoods and schools.
Yeah, many of the titles for these California bills have nothing to do with the actual bill. That's how they sneak these by people. Yeah.
I mean, they snuck in some water rights and some other area completely off the left field somewhere. Who knows where?
Right.
It's just like, so tell us a little bit more about that assembly bill.
Well, so this one came out of nowhere. And the main premise of the bill was that when a school drops below a state mandated vaccine threshold, so let's say they CDPH, California Department of Public Health, decides 95% is the threshold. Then anytime a school would drop below that threshold, they would send a letter home to every single parent saying, your child's at risk, things are dangerous, your school is below the threshold to keep you safe from vaccine preventable diseases. So, when I see legislation like that, it's really hard to know what the goal is here. For that one, it really seemed like it was sort of like a Trojan horse in a way. They're trying to set the groundwork for something in the future. And this was one a lot of these other bills throughout the years that were sort of like that, you could kind of get an inkling of what they were maybe going to do and use that 4 years later. This one, it was really hard to tell what they were going to use it for. There were a few different ideas, but even then, I don't think we really knew what they were going to do with it. But I don't think it was real. The real intention was, what the bill was supposed to be. So this was particularly frightening for us. And so, V is for vaccine. I came out there representing V is for vaccine and opposed the bill as the formal opposition at all the hearings, and was really pushing on the point of discrimination and the worry that when you send a letter home to parents, that the parents, they're going to be angry. And of course, I think they know this. Who are they going to be angry at? Well, they're going to be angry at the kids that didn't vaccinate. And basically here in California, the only people who can't vaccinate and still go to school are children with IEPs, AKA children with disabilities. So I chose to really focus on that point at these hearings, which is interesting because, it might not be the best argument against, a bill like this, but I think some people you got to understand, we got all Democrats in office in California. So you're not necessarily, arguing facts in California with legislators, especially Democrat legislators, is not always effective. Oftentimes you got to argue feelings and you got to know your audience. And so that was the route that I decided to take. And less than a week ago, the bill died in appropriations. So huge success. Very happy.
Yeah. That is really good. That's really good to have wins like that, especially when, I've actually sat on committees at a community college. I was on a board of trustees, and it seemed like everybody else, it was like a rubber stamp committee. They already had their minds made up before anyone even showed up to speak their mind. There's seems to be no listening to the public's concern, and and then table it for another day. No, they already have that rubber stamp. Boom, push it through.
Right. It's really gross because if you think about it, it's a lot of high school stuff going on at the legislature. You have people that, when they're deciding whether they're going to vote yes or no on a bill, they have to also think about, if I vote no on this person's bill, they might vote no on my bill, and I might need their vote for my bill. So it's unfortunately, to a certain extent, like these legislators, they're not necessarily thinking about what is best for the people, what would make my constituents happy. They're also thinking about what's best for them, for their bills. They don't want to upset their colleagues. So yeah, it is really difficult when you have to, how are you going to convince somebody not to vote for somebody when they're worried about getting that person's vote? There's not much you can do.
Well, there's also a strong appearance that lobbyists from a lot of these major areas are just tramping all over the people's rights.
Absolutely. And there, I think oftentimes the lobbyists, especially if they're with a big firm like a pharmaceutical company, they hold a lot of strength. And, and we saw that with SB 277 back in 2015. That was in California, the bill that would basically eliminated the philosophical exemption. And there was a pharmaceutical lobbyist standing right next to the bill's author, Senator Pan. And when he was faced with a decision, oftentimes he would consult with the lobbyist before making a decision, which is just mind-blowing, because now you're going, okay, it's not the legislator making the decisions here. It's the lobbyist for pharma.
Right. Wow. You said what, 2015? So, this is going on pre-pandemic, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. And again, this seems to build up into what's now known as the pandemic of 2020, 2021. Which is SARS-CoV-19, which, late 2019 is when the virus was discovered. But yeah, people, everyone across the nation, we need more Joshes in this world. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. It is interesting. I think a lot of people have kind of gotten worn out and have kind of gotten a little bit lazy on this, or at least they needed a break, because sometimes when you go on this type of thing, it can get exhausting and sometimes depressing. It's only so often you want to be called a baby killer or whatever awful things people like to say about people who fight for medical rights. But regardless that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is head of HHS, and regardless that Trump is the president, and this and that. We still, every single person, we still need every single person to kind of spread the word nicely, try to get people to understand, what's best for them and their neighbor. And, we got to all do this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to play let's go back quite a few years. You and your son, Otto, you guys were at a hearing. I want to play a short segment of that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Coleman, and this is my son, Otto Coleman. Otto was in a wheelchair because he suffers from vaccine-induced transverse myelitis, so he's paralyzed from the waist down. Vaccine injury is a real thing, and it's not as rare as many people think. When my wife was pregnant with Otto, we had the discussion of should we vaccinate? Should we space them out? We knew very little about vaccines and ultimately decided to do what our doctor recommended. After Otto's vaccine injury at 17 months old, we thought about how we did not receive thorough informed consent from our doctor. Our pediatrician did not ask about our family's health history. He didn't ask if Otto, my wife, or I were allergic to any of the ingredients in the multiple vaccines he would be receiving. He did not review each and every package insert with us, including contraindications, possible side effects, etc., and didn't show us the vaccine inserts for us to read on our own. Parents not receiving proper informed consent in regards to vaccinating is a problem.
It has been a problem for quite a while. So, approximately how old was your son then?
Oh gosh, so he would have been doing the math here, 5.
So
5 or 6, maybe 6.
5 or 6, and then how many years ago was that?
That was 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah. He's 17 now.
Goodness.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Time goes by. So 11 years ago, and the pandemic was 6 years ago?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I was pretty fresh in this fight during that hearing. I had only just gotten involved maybe 5 or 6 months before.
Wow.
I knew my son had been, vaccine injured in 2010, but it took me a few years before I really dug in and understood that didn't really need to happen, and that I really didn't have informed consent like I was talking about there. And then I started going down that rabbit hole of seeing how bad, how many bad things are going on, and careless things, I guess I should say, were going on in the vaccine program.
Right. Yeah, no, a lot of people didn't know about this whole uninformed consent up until the pandemic, 2019, 2020.
Right.
COVID, the pandemic, you give it as many different names as you want, but to me, it seems like a huge political setup. That happened in 2020, 2021. I mean, we can follow timelines at another show because that's going to be a long rabbit hole to go down. But
yeah.
So I want to play another short video here, or I'll try to make it short.
We are live at the March for Science, and we have Senator Pan. Who doesn't want to kind of hang out? We're talking about how he's a liar. And we just want to make sure the world knows that Senator Pan told many lies.
Don't run into me.
Oh, you just walked backwards, Senator Pan. It's on video. So walking into you when you just took steps backwards, it's a nice try. Once again, he's lying.
So I want to stop it right there. Just, physically in person, he's trying to, say, oh, he like runs in front of a car, and then it's like, you hit me. Where?
Oh yeah, that was awful. That was the Science March in Washington, D.C. And I knew he was going to be there, and I didn't really know what he was going to do. I thought he was going to be, I kind of assumed he was going to be speaking, but it ended up he just was showing up there, to do sort of like a photo shoot. And yeah, I made sure I messed that up. I just followed him around for like an hour, it's funny, because here's the March for Science, and everybody has their signs. And then Pan goes up to an officer and says, this man is bothering me. He's following me with this sign. Can you tell him to leave? And And the officer turned around and tried to explain to him the First Amendment. Yes, this man can hold a sign in a public place, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Don't you love it? America.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's interesting, and it got even heavier. Like if you watch that video towards the end, people started to sort of physically attack me, minorly.
Wow.
So he's walking around, as you saw, with a white coat, and all these people, they didn't even know he was a senator. So just random people would go, "Leave that scientist alone," and then they came over and just start messing with me. They have no idea who I am. They'd have no idea who he is. They're just jumping in. And then, people were kicking me, tripping me, trying to grab my sign and throw it. And Richard Pan never said anything. Richard Pan never said, "Oh, no, don't do that. Don't cross the line into a physical altercation." He never said anything. In fact, he was fanning the flames and trying to make things worse for me, which is just mind blowing. I would never allow that to happen to him. And, I very much dislike this man, but I know him being harmed or physically attacked by anyone, let alone somebody that, is maybe a colleague of mine or someone else fighting for health freedom. That's not going to do good for anyone. So it does really speaks to his character,
I like how you use the word dislike. You dislike the man. What he did was hateful by not stepping up. And there's a huge difference. Yeah.
And this is a guy who assaulted me in the Capitol. I once kind of caught him in the hallway, and I had a camera, and I approached him and asked him a question. Yeah. He obviously, I don't think he liked my question. And so I asked him again. So I was persistent. I'm not yelling at him. I'm not name calling him. And this guy grabs me by the arm and starts to yank me. This is Pan grabbing me by the arm and starts to yank me like he's going to walk me out of the Capitol like I'm a child. Wow. And I had to tell him to take his hands off me. But for some reason, he was never charged, even though, I filed a police report. But imagine had I laid my hands on Richard Pan, what would have happened to me?
Oh, you would have been arrested.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No questions asked.
Absolutely.
But rules for thee, but not for me.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But imagine if this guy takes a position like Anthony Fauci. Mm-hmm. That's scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
For those.
Yeah, because he'll do whatever. I mean, the guy's a puppet. I think he just, whatever Pharma wants him to do, it really comes off like he just is, a soulless vessel of a human being willing to do or say whatever to move himself forward.
Right. Wow. Well, let me play another little clip of a few different people trying to visit him in person at his office. I believe this is where this took place.
It is.
I'd like Senator Pan to sit down with me at any time on television and talk about why, when he knew we had a whistleblower at the CDC saying that this vaccine was destroying children's lives, why would he pass a law making us have to use that defective vaccine?
So as you, Del Bigtree, how many other people were there?
There was about maybe 6 or 7. Andrew Wakefield, Polly Tommy's there.
Okay.
And then some constituents.
His staff said no, he wasn't there. He was out of the office, and we looked up and we saw him in one of the rooms, and he looked right at us and he booked it. He just took a run for the door, and he literally ran out the door.
Go.
To be comfortable with you seeing the stuff we haven't seen. We just thought maybe you'd want to. Hello. Yes, we just were wanting to have a conversation with Senator. I don't know where I'm at.
No, away from me.
We were in his office. He saw us in his office, and then he ran literally out of the back door. I ran out in the hallway. It's pretty fast, actually. I have to give, Senator Pan that. I don't know if he did track and field when he was younger, but he zipped down the hall, ran down some stairs. I think he did 2 flights of stairs in about 7 seconds. Very, very impressive. And then ran down the hall. But I mean, obviously, all we want to do is have a conversation. I mean, this is the United States of America. This is a conversation about health. We have a senior scientist at the CDC that's come forward and saying that the MMR autism vaccine studies are fraud. I think Senator Pan should talk about that since he wants to pass bills mandating these vaccines. So I guess he doesn't want to have that conversation. He's fast. He's extremely fast.
Well, he has had the practice for many years.
Yeah.
Ken ran. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Track and field.
That was like right after the movie VaXXed from Cover Up to Catastrophe had been released. And it started in New York, and then it played in Los Angeles, and then it had come up to Sacramento, and that was right then. Well, Richard Pan had been bad-mouthing the movie as being completely full of it. Nothing was true. And there was literally no way he could have seen the film because he was not in any of those places when it played. So that was sort of what they wanted to ask him about. Like, how are you going out and talking about this film that you haven't seen?
Wow. I see parallels with Fauci. Liar. Wait. Let me bring up that T-shirt again. Yeah, liar is what it says on the T-shirt.
And he's constantly lying. He constantly, and even I was at a debate with him and Kevin Kiley last night, and Kevin even had to say at one point, "You just said this. That is a bold and blatant lie. Let's stick to facts here."
Yeah. Wow. Gosh. And these guys have track records, don't they?
They do, but unfortunately, when you're in a position like him and on the side of the political spectrum that Pan is, he has all the basically all the mainstream news happy to just toe the line for him and never bring any of those things up, and most people don't really see anything or hear anything beyond the mainstream news. So they control the narrative for the most part, unless you're watching podcasts like yours or other independent, news people and podcasters, it is hard to understand when these people are, bold-faced lying like Richard Pan can't stop.
Right. Yeah. I want to see if I can find a clip from Denzel Washington. Oh, I don't have it up and ready, but basically if you watch the news, you're misinformed. If you don't watch it, you're uninformed. So either way, you're screwed.
Right.
That's terribly paraphrasing what Denzel Washington said of 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But what he said was very much true then, as it's true now.
Right.
You can't believe everything. As 2 different news channels give a report over in my hometown, back in California, and one gave a fair and unbiased report. The other one completely one-sided and skewed.
Right. And I think a lot of people will see news on 2 or 3 different networks and think, oh, well, I heard it in 2, 3 different places, so it must be true. And they don't understand that, a lot of those, when you go up to the top, you look at who owns these different companies, whether it's ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, Washington Post, LA Times, New York Times, all this stuff, you're going to see BlackRock, 35% ownership or these entities.
State Street.
Yeah, and you'll even hear lines, particular lines in each of these news broadcasts that are basically the exact same. So they're all kind of, just obeying their marching orders for the most part.
Right. And these are not no tinfoil hat. You look it up yourself, audience. Look it up for yourselves. We are not like trying to throw you down some sideways rabbit hole or throw you down
that's
sideways.
What you got to
rabbit hole.
understand. It's like the Cliff Notes, like if you wanted to cheat in school, you didn't want to read the book, you go read the Cliff Notes. And that's what the news is. The news, whether it's the newspaper or you're reading an article online or you're seeing a show, they are the Cliff Notes. And you always got to go to the source if you can, especially if it's important to you or you're blown away by something. You got to go to the source and you got to look for yourself because, I mean, man, you don't see much on television. News broadcasts that are true anymore.
Well, I mean, just as you're uninformed as a parent and give the vaccine to your son,
right?
The news, uninforms or misinforms.
Absolutely, and I mean, even before I decided, to vaccinate my kid, I went online and I thought I need to do my research. I need to find out more, and I and all I knew at the time was to look through Google and look through the first 15 or 20 things that came up. And I didn't know how to look beyond that. I didn't know where else to go. Of course I do now, but there's plenty of people that were just like me, 17 years ago that don't have a clue, and they see what they see and they believe those things. And
there's still people to this day. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right.
And it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk a little bit more on this. Recently there's a tragedy. Somebody famous had passed away. And every time, an actor, actress, rock star, so on and so forth passes away, the first thing I think, and I don't mean to be insensitive,
right?
A loss of life is still a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought is, what vaccine did they receive?
Yep. And if you're talking about Hayden, I thought the same thing too. The first thing I thought is, how many COVID shots did she get, and how many, booster jabs, and and now it's kind of coming out that I guess she may have had like some alcohol and drug problems, and that may have contributed to it. But even at the same time, if she was boosting and getting COVID jabs, how much did that wear down her immune system so that she was unable to fight these things? So, but yeah, I kind of the same thing. Almost anytime I hear about it, a young death, that's the first thing I think, like, it's the jab.
And I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to give healthcare advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. But the COVID-19 vaccine and boosters are not vaccines. They are mRNA gene therapy treatments.
Right. They had to change the definition of a vaccine right when that came out, so they could call it a vaccine in order to have it on the no liability list.
Yeah.
They know how to do everything.
Right. But I mean, we still got that thing to deal with from the Act of 1986 that prevents the vaccine manufacturers from being sued.
That's right.
For such situations as your son's in.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know this, but that was when the vaccine companies were exempted from liability in 1986. That's also when the government started profiting from vaccinations. So it's like they take, for every antigen that's in a vaccine, there's a 75-cent tax that's charged. So like the MMR would have, since it has 3 antigens, that would be what, $225. That would be the tax. It goes into a special fund, and then you can sue for that fund if you suffer a vaccine injury. And of course, they don't tell anybody that even exists. So most people don't even use it or try to, make use of that. I didn't know about it until after I was past the statute of limitations. But of that money, of that tax that's taken, and a lot of people don't know this, 25% of that goes to the government, and it just goes to the general treasury. Why is the government profiting from vaccines? While they tell us there are mandates to take them, and they're also profiting for them. So it is a conflict of interest, and I don't know why they would need to take any of that money.
Wow. I mean, just that there is like worse than Obamacare, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought Obamacare was bad. And, you shouldn't be forced to do anything against your will.
Right.
Let alone purchase a vaccine or purchase healthcare insurance or get vaccines for any purpose.
And some people might go, well, nobody's being forced. Nobody's forcing you to do it, and you have the option. Your kid doesn't have to go to school. I got to tell you, I've seen and heard some really sad stories, and one of the ones I always think about is this mother that I was talking to who was in New York at the time, and when they lost their exemptions, and she was vaccinating her kid because she at least felt she had no other option. She was a single mom. She couldn't she had to do something with her son while she was at work. She wanted her kid to be in school. She didn't know what else to do. And he had already had a reaction to a previous vaccination. And this woman who didn't know what else to do, she continued to vaccinate her child. And she felt horrible about doing it. And she's telling me this story, and like, how horrific. So, that's a woman that was forced, and when you look at bodily autonomy, what is bodily autonomy? It's being able to do whatever you want to with your body, over your body, with zero influence. So as soon as there's anything impacting your decision, we're taking school away, or you can't go do this, or you can't go to this place, or you can't get this job, you that is now a violation of bodily autonomy, and we are in a place where that person's being forced.
Yeah, I remember, when I was younger, I worked in foster care, and then later on, I worked at a college. Each time, in those environments, I had to get a TB test, a little bubble up underneath the skin on your forearm.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I understand that tuberculosis is not a fun thing to have. But yeah, actually very detrimental. But
right.
But at the same time, we gotta have our own choice.
Always.
Wow.
Well, and what's mind blowing is a lot of the excuses for these mandates that people will give is they'll say, well, we have to protect the immunocompromised. They can't get a vaccine. So we have to have herd immunity for that immunocompromised person, right? It's never them. They're always fighting for another person. They're never the person that's, and the reason why is because the immunocompromised people are the ones that are usually the bulk of the people that are getting hit with the mandates and not able to go to school any longer. They're the ones that are being, really getting the short end of the stick here. So they're being used as the excuse to penalize them.
But I'm curious, and I don't think you have this answer, but I'm curious on how many politicians have received the mRNA gene therapy shot.
Oh, I would love to know, but I will tell you, I do think it was interesting. Things sort of changed around here in California around COVID. So they haven't had a lot of great success with vaccine bills since COVID-19 in this state. And even the ones that have made it through have been significantly watered down. And I really think that left and right, I think a lot of people know somebody at this point who had a vaccine reaction of some kind, especially from the COVID-19 vaccine. I heard it so much, like I would do these demonstrations with the signs, and these demonstrations, you got to get a lot of materials, so I'd be going to 6 or 7 different Home Depots to get enough sticks for the signs or whatever I'm getting, going to a lot of places. And when you're buying a bunch of stuff like that, it's inevitable. People ask you, what are you buying all this stuff for? And you'd say, oh, we're doing this rally, demonstration, this protest. No, why? And we'd explain why. And then that person would say, and it literally happened almost every time in this situation, all these different places. Oh, I got to tell you what happened to me. I haven't been right ever since, or my son, or my brother. And it was mind blowing how it was just everybody I brought it up to, people I didn't know that said they knew somebody, or they were impacted, or somebody in their close family was impacted. So I think a lot of people, discovered that vaccine reactions are a real thing. And so, yeah, I think we were doing all right. So, for a little while, even now, like we just beat this bill. So yeah, we've been doing okay here with the vaccine legislation the last 4 or 5 years. It hasn't
thank
been
goodness.
horrible. Finally.
But again, I want to make the audience aware, in case this guy tries to take any positions in the NIH or any such healthcare for our nation. Senator Richard Pan of California, keep him out of anywhere near the White House.
Yeah.
Or near any other healthcare. I'm just, people, scientists, yada, yada, yada. So I want to play a short little clip here of, the day I met Josh back in, 2022. Senator Pan wrote a bill, or a couple of bills. He skipped out on this one so he could be at another one.
Did not want to cut anybody off. I want to make sure that everybody who is waiting to testify on the phone has an opportunity to do so. And so we are going to...
Excuse me, Mr. Newman.
Oh, my goodness. I am so sorry. You were blocked by the pillar there. Please proceed. I apologize.
Hi, my name is Timothy Holliday. I do greatly agree with Mr. Coleman. We also need to make consent between patient and doctor, not to have government be forced upon these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, and apologies for not acknowledging it. Thank you, Mr. Holliday.
They're just trying to shoo their way into, something that's private between, patient, doctor. And it's absolutely disgusting that the government has to have their nose in, something private.
Right. And I think, didn't they just start manufacturing pharmaceuticals in California?
Wow.
Like California now manufactures pharmaceuticals, and this, I think it passed a couple of years ago, and now it's just like up and rolling. And I don't know if they're actually supplying anybody yet. That might be next year. But like, think about that. Our government, who can mandate vaccines and mandate medicines and do all kinds of things, tax different places, are actually in the business of selling pharmaceuticals, and whether they're buying from themselves, aka using our tax dollars to buy their product at whatever price they decide. It's pretty nuts. Like, they should not be running a pharmaceutical business, the state of California.
Nope. Absolutely not. Wow. How I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
Yeah.
That stuff needs to come to a direct halt, because that's coming out of taxpayers' dollars to manufacture. And yeah, they turn around, being that they're a company now they're not liable because of the Act of 1986, which honestly, that act needs to go away with a quickness. Right. Faster than Pan, down the hallway, running from Del Bigtree.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these companies, they have to have incentive to make their products safe. And when you can't sue them, what do they care if it harms you? And as soon as that 86 Act was passed in 86, it took place in 87. That's when it began.
Yeah.
By 89, they started to increase the vaccines to the schedule. So they went from 24 to, I believe, over 70 now. And that was right after they got that exemption from liability. That's when all of a sudden this huge rollout came out. And then, of course, we saw autism spike right along with the increase in vaccines.
Oh, and that's something else in recent news. I was going to ask your personal opinion now, because we're not here to give professional opinion. Again, this is for entertainment purposes only. There recently a lot of posts going around on social media that there's no vaccine that's linked to autism.
Right.
But wait a minute. Come on, people. Do the math. How many vaccines are given out right now? How many different
be more
vaccines?
Obvious.
Right. I mean, it's so blatantly in everyone's face.
Well, and I like the CDC has now updated their website that says 1 out of every 2 parents with a child with autism, 1 out of every 2, so half of them, believe that it was caused because of vaccination. That is a significant number, and that is not going away, no matter how many times you read in the news over and over and over again that these things don't do this. Now, when I was on the tour with the movie VaXXed, From Cover Up to Catastrophe, on that tour, a lot of people that were coming and seeing the vaccine documentary were people that had been impacted in some way, shape, or form. And so when I'm on the tour with them, the filmmakers, people wanted to come up and share their stories of their child's vaccine injury. And so we started to document them. And so many of them were people where they vaccinated their child and their child ended up with autism. And what people need to understand is, these interviews are very powerful, because you see the person, you can tell they're not a tinfoil hat person. Right. It's every person on the walk of life. You have teachers, you have firemen, district attorneys, you have every single person, and they're not a bunch of loonies. And they talk about how their child was fully cognitive, 100%, hitting all their milestones. And can show video or show photos. And then it's like, as soon as that vaccine hit, either right away or slowly over the course of a day or a few days, they watch their child regress, go from talking to no longer talking to head banging. And it's, you'd have to be stupid not to understand what happened when things changed right when that happened. And I mean, too many people have that story to tell. And if the person's watching this and thinks that's nuts, you got to find these people or find these stories and watch these interviews, because this is a real thing. And there's other similar things that go along with it, the after effects and the spiral down. We would hear, I could basically kind of predict what a person was going to say next. And did this happen? And was their gut messed up? And So it's real. It's real. I mean, there's, people have won lawsuits over this. There's the Hannah Polling lawsuit. Hannah, she got autism from a vaccine, and her father sued, and he won in court. You know, and of course, autism is listed as a side effect in most vaccine inserts. There's plenty of studies that really kind of bring it together. So, you know, it's just, you got to look at it. But, you know, what would happen to the vaccine program if they acknowledge vaccines cause autism?
Yeah, that would go away.
They can't admit that. They can never admit that. And that's why the lies are going on.
But I mean, was it a week or two ago? They want to break up the MMR into 3 different shots, not,
Right.
you know, singled up into one.
Right.
And then what was it? Right before that, they are wanting to actually they're introducing and made legal the flu MMR or the flu mRNA gene therapy shots.
Right.
No, people, no, don't do it.
Yeah. You know, an interesting thing about the MMR is, you know, they used to be single shots. There was like a measles shot and then a rubella shot.
Yes.
So Merck Pharmaceuticals develops a mumps vaccine, and they spend all this money to develop this vaccine, and it takes, you know, years to do it. And so when they finally develop this vaccine and they think they've got something that's great and effective, Merck goes to the CDC and says, look, we got this mumps vaccine. We want you to add it to the children's schedule. And Merck said, the CDC says, well, it's not really a problem. Mumps is not an issue. We can't add it to the schedule. And Merck's like, but we spent all this money, you know, on this vaccine. And the CDC's like, it's not harmful enough to add it to the schedule. It's not a problem in the US. So Merck then decides, okay, well, we'll mix it with the measles vaccine and the rubella vaccine. So now you have to get the mumps vaccine in order to get those vaccines, because we're going to stop selling the single shots. So that's the whole invention of that vaccine was to force you to take a vaccine that the CDC felt wasn't necessary.
Wow. Now, I've mentioned this in a few other shows, including last Thursday when I had Frank Tortorici on with Fit Over Pharma. None of the vaccines have been placebo tested or double-blind placebo tested. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to say with an inert placebo, because they call all kinds of things placebo. They'll call testing a vaccine against another vaccine a placebo. That's not a placebo. So an inert placebo would be nothing, you know, maybe saline. That's it. They're not one vaccine currently on the children's schedule has been tested with an inert placebo safety test. And
so we're talking from polio on up to whatever the latest and greatest is, the HPV. Okay,
right.
I'll just throw that one out there because I don't know what the schedule is. I don't have any children, unfortunately. But,
well, you know, and HPV is actually really interesting because typically, like with these vaccines, like the excuses are like, well, we got to test the new MMR against the old MMR because we can't like not vaccinate these people. They might get a rash. So they're testing vaccine against vaccine. Now, you can't do that. The idea is you have one group untested and the other group tested, and then you track them and you see which ones are having different reactions. Well, yeah, vaccine against vaccine, you're not doing that. Well, with the HPV vaccine, there was no old HPV vaccine. So they don't have an excuse to, in the control group, to have anything but a placebo. There's no old vaccine to give. So they do the first test and the vaccine looks really bad. There's deaths, there's injuries, it's really bad. They're like, okay, so they do a second test. Again, they used a real inert placebo. And again, the vaccine looks really bad. Then they do a third test. And in this one, instead of giving that group nothing, they just give them aluminum. They just give, there's no reason to just inject aluminum into the control group. Wow. And then all of a sudden, that one was much more well balanced. This group died and got injured almost as much as this group, the one that got just straight up aluminum. So then they balanced it, and then they took the 3 studies and sort of mixed them together and went, okay, the deaths and the injuries are just low enough now. But like, again, like, so that kind of like really shows it right there. They have to do this type of thing in order to get the results they need. So this bullshit about we've got to give the control group the old vaccine to protect them against a rash, you know, there's no excuse to do that. We call these, you know, these scientific studies, when a group takes a study, they know they're risking their life. And the idea is we're going to be the ones that test this medicine to know if it's safe to give to the entire planet. I mean, because vaccines they want to give to every single human. And so those people are the test subjects. So don't tell me we have to give them the old vaccine because, oh no, they might get measles. If they're going to be the test group, we need a true inert placebo. We need people who are unvaccinated. So the only reason why they're not doing studies that way is because they're hiding something.
Let's go hang out with the Amish.
Right. Where you won't see autism.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, people that are spreading that information around might want to slow down and look around. That's all
people do need to look around. Yeah. Pay attention.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things that kind of blew me away, like during COVID time. And I wish I would have documented this more, but the mainstream narrative kind of changed a fair amount, whether it was every few months, every 6 months. And it's like, most people just forgot, like, hey, they're telling you something completely different now. Aren't you like, what the F's going on? Like, why did they say that? Now they're saying this. Oh, now they're saying it in a different way. People need to pay attention and remember, because there's so much deception going on. And if you just use your brain, it's obvious.
Yeah. So I have a condition. Actually, this is an interesting anniversary. This is why I'm hammering down on a lot of health this month on Patriots 3. This marks a 40-year anniversary for myself having a disease. And, for the longest time, they called my condition hereditary. Now, I remember, right around that vaccine schedule, I was getting some seizures, and they were calling it a borderline case of epilepsy. The last 5 or 6 years, now I'm starting to strongly think that it's vaccine injury. But there's also, possibly another, or, a compound of things going on. So, there's a few years later, I was in an ATV accident and started limping. And then 10 years after that, they discovered I have a 14 millimeter tumor in my spine. So, topping off the vaccine injury, then, getting that into that little accident, life definitely has not been a joyride for me. Right. Even though I've had fun in my wheelchair, I've gone over 40 miles per hour downhill. Whoo, yeah, it's fun. Good times. Don't tell your son.
No. I don't want him going that fast, but I know he would love that.
Helmet, leather jacket, elbow pads, knee pads. I might be crazy, but I'm not stupid.
So you're ready to take a spill. Oh
yeah, I was ready to tuck and roll.
But that's like what you were saying there. It's it's oftentimes people need to understand it might not just be the vaccine. It can be other things with it, like in combination of, so, there are just so many different things that can happen to a human being, and, messing around with somebody's immune system, which scientists fully don't even understand how it works. Like imagine doing upgrades on a car and you don't know how an engine works. It could be a scary thing. And, I don't think they really know what they're doing at all.
Right. Yeah. So, for years they were calling it hereditary. And then it was, 2018, I believe it was, or 2019, my general practitioner changed it over to cerebral palsy. Wait a minute. For all of these years, and now you're calling it cerebral palsy? You can't make this up. You cannot make this up.
Yeah.
So my chart, my paper chart is about 2.5, 3 inches thick. Then there's the digital chart, which is, I don't even want to go over that. It's ridiculous. And I don't trust any of that digital hoopla. They actually omitted or deleted most of my files over in Santa Clara County.
And were they like digital only?
During the transfer from paper to digital, there's even films that are gone. Other reports, blood draws, so on and so forth, gone.
And these people make so much money,
right?
And they're completely inept.
Yeah.
Now that's something, unless you've been through like something medical, like a lot of people don't really know, it's not all doctors are created equal, not all medical help, you just, it's always a gamble. And then even then, anytime you see a medical person, you're lucky to get more than 5 or 10 minutes with them, and every so many months. And what can they do in that 5-10 minutes? Then they can't really do anything very thorough. Or
I
at least
remember,
most don't.
what was it, late 80s, early 90s, right around the change from Reagan to Bush Sr. And I was able to walk into my doctor's office, $25, boom, see the doctor. He spends a good 30 minutes or more if necessary. And life is good. No insurance, no copay, $25 on the table. I miss those days.
Yeah, right. Much simpler.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Viz for Vaccine.
So, I was talking about with VaXXed Tour, a lot of that was creating video content. So, recording those interviews with parents and putting those things out, and then other vaccine, related video material. And then not long after that, 2017, 2018, we got hit with the censorship really bad. Yes, before COVID, everybody, they were already, using the censorship type stuff on people who were, criticizing the vaccine program. So I got really frustrated with my videos not being able to get seen any longer, or having things removed, or, most of the time it was just limiting the reach, going from like millions of views to struggling to get 7,000 views, where it was consistently high before. So it became this thing like, let's just go out with a large sign like you see there, and with a full message about vaccine risk, and have full context on each sign, and then just go out to places that are very well populated, where there's a lot of people. People were always, I would see people just going to the Capitol, always going to the Capitol. And there's only so much traffic at the Capitol. So unless you want to be out there, demonstrating for legislators that you're, upset about a bill or in opposition to, other than that, there are much better places to go. You could go in front of Costco and be seen by 500 times as many people,
Well, Costco doesn't allow that. I know Costco doesn't allow that, because I tried getting signatures to get rid of Gavin at a Costco, and they booted us right out less than 5 minutes because it's private property.
Well, what we would do is we would have people on the sidewalk in front of the entrances. We just cover, they have 2 or 3 different entrances, people next to each one of those. So, and even with that campaign, like it started off, like the very first time we went out was going to Disneyland during the opening of Star Wars Land. And so it's like the busiest day of the year in one of the highest, most trafficked places on the planet. And every person's walking by and they have to read the sign. And we have that's from that first time right there. And we also dressed up in cosplay to keep it fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
but we were seen by mass. There's no censorship there. Nobody can do anything there. And then we're getting these information out. And so, I do try to continue to do this. People have done this now in all 50 states and in 4 countries outside of the US.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many of those signs are just like in circulation, and those things do not break. So they'll last forever. Nice. And people will have them in their garage and then, grab them and run out when there's a news crew or something. So, it's just a peaceful way to fight the censorship and still just let people know about the sides about the bad side about vaccines that you really don't hear anywhere else.
Well, definitely. I just put it in the link into the chat, and then I'll update the show and put it in the show description later. Definitely visit the Viz for Vaccine website. I also showed some of the t-shirts you can get there, especially the one that I've been flashing, because we don't want another Anthony Fauci Part 2, otherwise known as Richard Pan, in anywhere near Washington, D.C. Nowhere near.
That's probably going to happen, but
I almost opened the show with this fun little video clip. This is from last night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good to see you, Richard. It's been a while. I'm the big fan.
Yep, that was his debate last night with Kevin Kiley, and Kevin completely wiped the floor with him. But the 2 entities that are going to be editing clips from this is the Sacramento Bee and C-SPAN. So, they can just do whatever. They'll edit Pan to look like he's knocking it out of the park and Kylie's not doing a good job.
Yep, I know how editing works. I'm an editor myself.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. You know, it's there's a large group of people that only watch things from a certain source, and they're never going to see anything else, and you have no control.
So I saw you posted. There's going to be another one coming up.
Yes, there's another one. There we go, October 8th, and it's in Roseville, which is the city where I live in. This vote is actually from my county is part of this. My area where I live is part of this race here. Yeah. It wasn't before. Pan wasn't. I was never his constituent, but yeah. So it'll be in Roseville, and if you're around, if you're in Northern California, come out, and it'd be great to have more people there in attendance that don't care for Pan than Pan fans.
I'm not a fan of Pan, I'll tell you that.
And the $35 doesn't go to Richard Pan's campaign, so it's annoying that it's $35. But
so it's Thursday, October 8th at 10 a.m. to noon Pacific time, and of course California.
And it includes breakfast. So
yeah, I'm seeing that, breakfast and coffee. So that's good.
Yeah,
it's an expensive cup of coffee.
I don't know if you're going to want to eat right before you have to look at Pan and hear him speak. That might not go well.
Nope, that'd be like eating and watching Fauci.
Right.
Not my cup of tea or coffee for that matter. Wow. Yeah, definitely want to get more material next time having you on, because I definitely want to have you on again.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure seeing you. Always great talking with you.
Yeah, good time. This is a great interview.
Thanks. Thank you. So I want to throw in a little shameless plug. I never talk about my personal life, but I've been going through quite a bit. And it was a little over 2 years ago, I went ahead and put together a little fundraiser for myself to help get a home built for myself. And this is not a lot, but I call it Home for the Holiday. It's on Gibson Go. And so far raised up a little bit more than $11,000, almost $12,000 actually, currently. I'm just asking for people to share. If you can donate, that'd be amazing. Again, it's never about me when it comes to doing this show. So this is why this is the first time I'm showing this here on Patriots 3, Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness. It's always about my guest or, other people like, Pastor Jerry Cook, who I showed earlier in the program here. But yeah, I'd like, to, people to take a good look and read at that. And, if you're interested in donating, please do. And, please share. That's the least that I can ask. Definitely check out that hearing if you're over in California, even just to visit. Head on over to Roseville. I think that'd be quite the interesting thing, just to see Pan not in office anymore.
Right.
We don't want to see this guy anywhere near DC. Unless you want another Anthony Fauci, because that's what I see in the future. If that guy gets in, there's another Anthony Fauci.
It is pretty funny watching Kylie, wipe the floor with Pan. So, even if you hate Pan, I mean, Kylie gets in some good jabs, and those are pretty fun to watch.
Oh yeah, I've seen Kylie in action before. Oh, Kylie's what a Yale graduate, and
probably I don't know.
Kylie very, and very good memory too. I mean, I hadn't seen Kylie in about 5.5, 6 years, or no, 4.5, 5 years, and if I rolled up to him, he'd probably still remember me.
Right. Yeah.
It was, a span of months went by, and I see him over in Monterey, and then I see him in Sacramento, and he knows me by first name. And I'm like, all right, where's that T-shirt I gave you, man?
Yeah, he's on it. He's clever.
I gave him a Recall Gavin 2020 shirt. So, and yeah, he still remembers me giving him that shirt too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to like, share, and follow Patriots 3, Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness. You can find it at Tim Holliday TV. So that's TimHolliday TV. Let me flash that up here really quick. You can find us on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And am I missing any? If I am, well, guess what? I have everything all in the links. It's in the show description. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Josh, for being on. Again, we will definitely have to have you on again. Always great chatting with you.
Right on. Thanks for having me on, man.
And as I say, don't be a stranger, because I'm strange enough. Ladies and gentlemen, have yourself a wonderful time. Ciao for now.